I think people can give up too easily on themselves. They self-abandon too quickly because it's not quick enough.
The thing that I'm sort of sad, I think it's sad. I think it's sad to accept like so many limitations that you don't have to have, right? You know, to accept anxiety or depression or panic or stress or even OCD, to accept these things. Yeah, well, I'm just a bit anxious. Yeah, okay. You don't have to be anxious. You know, anxiety is completely inappropriate, really. I mean, obviously, you know, you should be frightened of things, but anxiety is imagining catastrophe that never happens, and that just what's
the point?
What's the point? Yeah.
Hi, welcome back to the channel, Living Life Trauma Free. I have an amazing conversation for you today with a gentleman by the name of Dr. David Purvis. He's the person I turned to when I had experienced a severe panic attack, which then led to extreme anxiety where I couldn't actually get out of the house. Before we move on to the conversation, remember, if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscription button. I can never remember which side it is. Hit that notification bell, and of course, if you enjoy the content, if you like the video, just click the thumbs up. Let's get into it.
Straight into the conversation. I am going to set the scene about how I met David, but first, thank you, David, for giving up your Saturday, I believe it is, back in the UK.
Yeah, no problem.
So I discovered David's and I used his services to deal with what felt like, it was extreme anxiety and fear. I found it very difficult to even leave the apartment. So I just want to set the scene as to how that actually happened and how I managed to reach out to David and how he helped me through that process. But I'll be quick. So a friend invited me to go to, I live in Thailand, a tropical island off the coast of Thailand. Everything was fine. We got a speedboat, we got over there, we got into the hotel, everything was fine, went for a coffee. I got on the back of her bike, fine. Her driving was fine, it wasn't her driving. We went to see some friends, and all of a sudden I had a rush of adrenaline that literally, I could feel it creep up my body from my toes up into my head. And I turned white. I felt this overwhelming sense of fear, but I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't sit down, I couldn't stand still, I had to move. So the first thing I did was I went and locked myself in a toilet for 10 minutes to see if I could calm down, and that did absolutely nothing. I came back to see them, and then they said, you know, sit in the back in front of the fan, maybe it's the heat. I couldn't sit, I could not stay still. So we went back to the hotel room and I put the aircon on full blast, on cold. My friend left because there was absolutely nothing she could do. And I was sitting on the bed rocking, talking to myself like a mad woman, what I would describe as a mad woman. Tried to go into the bathroom again and get some level of containment. Nothing happened. It was too hot, tropical climate. Went back into the bedroom, started writing on a notepad with my eyes closed while talking to myself. I found that actually quite comforting, bizarrely enough. And then I started to move into this space of catastrophizing. I was on a tropical island. I couldn't get off. There was no hospital. There were no doctors. I mean, my head was just going wild and I couldn't stop that internal chatter that was playing out. Eventually fell asleep, decided to get a boat back the next day, speedboat back, got back to the island. Things calmed down a bit because I was at home. But then what started to happen was I still had this overwhelming sense of fear, anxiety. I was still catastrophizing. Steve would go out. I would be thinking, oh my God, he's going to die. He's not going to come back. It was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. That went on after that panic attack for about 5 months, and it was getting harder and harder to cope. So I thought, actually, I just cannot do this anymore. I don't know what the long-term consequences are going to be, but my work was suffering, my health was suffering, my relationship was suffering, everything seemed to have gone a bit what I call Pete Tong. So I went on Facebook and I did just some search anxiety. I think it was anxiety, put it in the search bar, and David's name came up and the group came up. I watched some of David's YouTube videos. I went into his Facebook group. So I really wanted to check him out to see if I liked him. Sorry, David. Well, we worked together, so I did like you. But just to make sure that he knew what he was talking about, because there's just way too many people who talk about this stuff but actually can't do anything about it. They claim to, but yeah, so I wanted to check him out. So I checked him out, Fullery. No, that's not a word. And we started working together, I think, for a period of about 8 weeks. And we'll go into it a little bit later on, but during those 8 weeks, you gave me a series of exercises to do that helped me within just 8 weeks to stop the mess I'd really got myself into. David, can you tell me what actually causes a panic attack to that extreme?
Right. So I remember what you know, it's been a few years now, but I remember that story about the speedboat and the island. And yeah. If you think of a mountain, okay, the top of the mountain is a panic attack. So you have to travel up the mountain to get to the top. And in a way, although it might not seem that way and you might not think it's the case, but you have to travel towards a panic attack. You've got to practice, actually. You've got to get good enough at being anxious to get to the top of the mountain, and then you can have a panic attack, right? Now, because a lot of that time you're practicing just, oh, I'm a bit of a worrier, oh, I'm a bit anxious, oh, I've been anxious for 15 years. We just got to go, yeah, well, that's just what it is. Yeah, but you're practicing, being anxious. Well, if you practice enough, you get really good at it. And then that creates a panic attack. But the thing about a panic attack is it feels like you're going to die. It feels like, you have no control. And, it's a really powerful physiological, blood drains, you feel dizzy, you have to lie down, it's like tunnel vision, humming, buzzing, it's like powerful stuff. And when the first time you have a panic attack, if there'd been a hospital nearby, you'd have gone to it. Because it seems like I must be dying. This has got to be what a heart attack's like. And I commonly talk to people who, yeah, I went to the hospital 3 times and they said, you've got to stop coming back because he's not having a heart attack. It's a panic attack. But it's so powerful. Well, it is, yeah, it is. But it's a purely psychological phenomena. The psychology of fear creates, I suppose I should just be specific for a moment. You're familiar with the fight, flight, or freeze system. So a panic attack activates the fight or flight system, right? So for some reason, your brain thinks that you need to defend yourself. You need to do everything you need to do. Your annihilation is imminent. Trouble is, it's not. So you've got all of the adrenaline that would be really useful if you had to fight or flee, but actually you're sitting on the back of a motorbike, or you're having a cup of tea, or you're in bed. I mean, that's the most, yeah, or you're driving on the motorway. You're not in a threatening situation, but you've got all the adrenaline that you need to fight or flee, or whatever. And in a way, the whole system was developed millions of years ago. Our ancestors didn't have language. So a couple of million years ago, let's say, our ancestors did not have language, but they also didn't have imagination. So the fight or flight or freeze system was developed when, if you felt fear, you probably had a threat to deal with, in which case it's useful, feel fear, get the adrenaline, deal with it, right? It's very, very cause and effect, very obvious. But we don't have the kinds of threats that our ancestors had. We, really, in truth, very rarely have external threats that warrant that fight or flight response. But what we have that they didn't have is imagination. So we create imaginary threats for one reason or another, you know, consciously or unconsciously, and we respond to them as if someone's going to throw a spear at us or an animal's going to eat us, you know. So anxiety in general is a disorder, is a problem of imagination. And panic is when you get really, really good at having a disorder of imagination. You have a panic attack, you're fabulous. I have got the gold medal of anxiety.
I'd rather not, but yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. One of the things that you taught me, we taught me a lot, but one of the things you taught me was that was the degree that I was actually constantly winding myself up by the thoughts and the internal chatter that was going on, which I thought were relatively harmless, but they really weren't.
No, well, that's practicing being anxious, isn't it?
Yeah.
The obvious one is, look, anxiety very much is a these days I think of it very much as a physiological response, right? You feel anxiety in your body. Okay, but worry is the thinking part of anxiety. So your brain's occupied with worry, and your brain's responding with you know, the physiology of threat. So, for instance, you know, what if it all goes wrong? What if I don't have enough money next month? What if my partner leaves me? What if they have a crash? What if the plane crashes? Well, what if I don't have enough money for retirement? Well, what if the food's poisoned? Or what if I can't get enough to eat? Or what if I can't find a car parking space? Right? So these are really normal, and everybody will go, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. But that's worry, right? You're asking a what if question. Now, you're a problem solver. Everybody is a problem solver, right? Because if you think about it, we navigate in a really complex social world, and we're always solving problems. What if they don't like me? What if I said the wrong thing? What if nobody turns up to our party? What if they don't answer my text, right? We're always solving social problems. Now, if you say a what if, like, what if the plane crashes? When will you find out if the plane crashes?
When you're going down.
Right. But when are you concerned about the plane crashing? Past, present, or future?
Present.
And when will you find out? No. You're right. You're concerned about the plane crashing in the present, but when will you find out if it crashes? In the future.
Yeah.
So when you worry, you're asking your brain to solve a problem or answer a question, and it does not have enough information to do that. Now, the plane crashing seems like an important question, right? So if you set your brain the task of answering the question, what if the plane crashes? Well, your brain's going to put a lot of effort in trying to fix that one. But because there's no information, because it hasn't crashed yet or not, right? Your brain can't solve it or answer it. Therefore, it goes round and round and round, and you become preoccupied. And that worry winds you up. That way, you know, it's a really important question. I've got to know the answer. I mean, you know, and it could be anything. Any worry is answering or asking a question that's future-based, right? Did I say the wrong thing at the party? Will people like me? You know, or social anxiety. Do I have cancer? Am I having a heart attack? Health anxiety. What if I'm trapped and I can't get out? What if I'm trapped in the middle of the row in the theater or the cinema and I can't get out? Panic. So we easily fall in to trying to predict the future. We can't do it, and that's a big element in winding ourselves up. So that's worry, right? Just for the listeners, right? Worry is completely pointless. A proportion of the population think it's useful. It helps me to figure out what to do if all these bad things happen. Yeah, okay, the bad things never happen, and you spend your whole time like in principle catastrophizing about stuff that never happens. Complete and utter waste of time. So what I taught you to do, Wendy, was to stop worrying.
Yeah, it was great.
When you stop worrying, you stop winding it. It's an element of winding yourself up.
Yeah.
You stop winding yourself up, and all of a sudden you've got more headspace. And to be honest, you're no worse off.
It's been life-changing. I've always said this, working with you was life-changing, completely life-changing. I learned how to manage my brain, which I didn't know how to do. The techniques you taught me can stop that negative talk in its tracks. I know it's no good for me. There's no point in it. It's like pointless, worthless.
Well, we spend so much time on pointless and unhelpful stuff that, you know, we end up, if we practice it enough, we end up in places we don't want to be. Really, you know, like, how did I get here? And it just doesn't make any sense, you know. So sorry, go on.
That's okay. The boundaries just came to mind. I don't think I'd learned any emotional boundaries. I don't think I had. I don't think they existed for me. I'd never been taught them, never. So my brain, as you said, was just like spaghetti. It was just constantly looking for the answers to questions, but they were unanswerable questions. There was nothing I could do about them, but they were totally out of control.
Who's the most important person in your world?
Me.
Okay. Has that always been true?
No.
Okay. Right. You can see what sort of problem that would cause, right? If other people are more important than you, what does that make you have to do?
Please other people all the time.
Okay. So if you're pleasing other people all the time, you're basically allowing other people to control you. Because, and the other thing is, you don't know whether they're pleased or not. So it's like a worry thing, right? You don't know whether you've done enough to please them. So you're always having to pour more effort into it.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and I've really just figured out this thing that I do, which I'm going to have to change slightly. And it's part of the same thing. So when I'm interviewing people, I'm very agreeable. I'm like, yeah, And I'm like, I realized yesterday that that's not helping. But I think it's a strategy I learned when I was in care to survive, to be agreeable, to be compliant, to not rock the boat, you know, really to be agreeable, but not necessarily really
agree
or have the balls to say anything.
Yeah.
So
it's very well, I liked it. Let me just step back a little minute too. Yeah. And what you just described, I call a neuro program. Now, we can make the distinction. Well, let me just, I know you understand this, but let me just say this for the listeners, okay? We run programs in our brain that give us outcomes. So if you're running a worry program, the outcome is that you worry and feel anxious. So if you ask a what if question, that will make you feel anxious. That's the outcome. Okay. So we have, in a sense, cause and effect. But I like to think of it as process and consequence, process and outcome. Okay. What you just described is a process. I have to, in a sense, I have to avoid causing conflict. I have to avoid upsetting people. I have to really give people what they want so that they won't attack me, they won't abuse me, you know, they won't put me down, they won't punish me in some way. So you're trying to stay safe by not upsetting anybody.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense.
Okay. Now, we learn these programs when we're young, a lot of times, okay? And in your context, it probably made sense to not upset people and to not generate conflict, but to be, you know, sort of subservient and sort of placid so that people didn't pick on you or cause trouble for you. But how old were you when you learned to do that? Oh,
it would have been from the beginning, as far back as I can remember.
Okay. And now you're a woman in your early 30s.
50s. I'll take 30. I should have just shut up.
You're a 31-year-old woman, right? So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That program's not appropriate now, is it?
No.
And that's how we fall into a lot of things. We do something, it makes sense, and it's useful and adaptive at the time. Yeah, but we keep doing it for another 30, 40 years. It's way out of date. It's completely unhelpful now. You know, you're a successful businesswoman. To be, to say yes all the time, for instance, is unhelpful.
Or just to agree. Yeah. Uh-huh. I'm starting to call it the nodding dog syndrome. You know, that dog when you're in the car and it's just like this.
Yeah.
But I know why it's happened. I think it's taken me a long journey to get to the point of going, why am I doing this? It's taken a long journey and a long time for me to go, actually, I have to work on this. I have to change it, because conflict used to make me sick, I would be petrified of conflict. I'd avoid it at all costs. If I see a fight, it's really weird. If I'd see a fight, it would make me feel I'd be uncomfortable. But I used to work in police custody where there was stuff happening all the time, and I felt fine and okay and contained. So it's a bit weird. On one side, I'm like petrified, and on the other, I'm like, I'm fine, it's okay.
There's a context. There's a powerful context effect, you know. Probably not relevant here, but contexts affect how we interpret or respond to things. Contexts are really powerful, you know. So in a police role, you're in a context, whereas if you're just walking on the street, you're in a much different context.
Yeah, got you.
Now, I was just going to say something, but I lost. I was just going to respond to what you said previously, but I think I lost the thread there.
Sorry.
That's fine. Right. Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, but because you've worked on yourself, you developed insight, and you've got like an eyeball on the processes that you're running, so you can recognize that you're tending to be overly agreeable. The majority of people don't see that because they don't have an alternative by which to judge their actions.
Right.
So this is one of my general mottos, right? Problems exist and persist in the absence of an alternative. So let's say anxiety, it exists and it carries on if you don't have an alternative to it. And if you don't have an alternative, anxiety would just be normal. If you don't have an alternative to being agreeable, it would just be normal. So when we spoke about boundaries a few years ago, right, we created an alternative. So now you can judge your old behavior by the alternative of your new behavior. You say, well, my old behavior didn't get me what I wanted. So now I can use a new behavior, which I've learned, a tool, let's say, and that will get me what I want. So now you can see that you've got two options. You've got two alternatives in a sense, right? And therefore, you're not trapped. You have options. If you've got options, you're not trapped. If you only got what you do, it's just what I do.
Yeah.
Well, you've got no options. In a sense, you're stuck with it.
Two things. One is, right, I'm just going to go backwards a second. And so I'd had a panic attack. I'd come back to the island and I had that continuous fear and anxiety for 5 months or so. Is that because I didn't know what the alternative was?
Yes. Well, you hadn't learned the alternative.
Yeah.
You were doing what people typically do when they have a panic attack. So as a general, yeah,
run.
No, but they don't know which way to run.
Oh, I know. At least I knew which way I was going.
You can sit in the bath. Or I've known people sit in the cupboard.
Wow.
You know, the smallest space you can get, sit in the closet with a cup of tea. That's a strategy.
Wow. Yeah.
I've known that. I've known people unable to leave their bedroom.
Yeah, that's where I was. It was
because it's the safest. It's sort of like the safest space. Well, the thing is, though, when you have a panic attack in bed, all of a sudden it's no longer the safest.
No.
Yeah. So you had 5 months of panic, right? Stuff happens. It's what we do with it that makes it a life experience or turns it into a traumatic or catastrophic experience. Okay. With panic, what people typically do is they go, oh no, I'm having a panic attack. And it's horrible. And so they focus their attention to do everything they can possibly do not to have another one. Now, this by the way, is completely the wrong strategy. But you know, if you don't know, it's what you do, right? It's horrible. I don't want to have another one. Okay.
Yep.
So you avoid anything that you think will give you or will cause you to have anxiety or to cause you to have a panic attack, right? Well, oh, I don't go out. I don't go to crowded places. I don't drive. Oh God, couldn't possibly drive. Or I do drive, but just on roads that I know. I don't go on any roads that I don't know. And I certainly don't go on the motorway or any kind of fast traffic. I don't go in elevators. I don't go to work, you know. So you restrict your life. So you shrink your comfort zone to something that feels controllable, because a panic attack feels uncontrollable. And so you try to get control by restricting your life. So most people do that. And in fairness, most people don't come to see me because they have panic attacks. They come to see me because their strategy for managing it is causing so much difficulty that they decide to do something about it, right? They'll tolerate the panic attack, but I can't leave the house. I've got a bit of a talk with Dave, right? Yeah, it's not the panic attack they're coming from. It's because their solution is really painful now. You know, it's really unhelpful.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is we have to expand your comfort zone, because there are probably 2 or 3 things which are important. First of all, a panic attack is just a psychological event. It won't hurt you, and it's not dangerous. Now, people don't believe that.
I'm sitting here going,
well,
I mean, I'm still alive. I'm still, it's just.
Yeah. The second thing is how you manage it makes it worse or makes it better.
Yeah.
And the third thing is really, in the end, we have to take the fear out of a panic attack. A panic attack is a massive eruption of the emotion of fear. And so you avoid anything that evokes fear. Normally, that'll be fair enough. But when you avoid a panic attack, you're letting fear make decisions for you. So you're making decisions based on fear. I can't go out because there might be a lot of people there and I might have a panic attack. I can't go out in the car. I can't drive to a party because I might have a panic attack. Okay. We have to go, okay, you're making decisions based on fear. And I would typically say a little bit facetiously, how's that working out for you?
It's not.
Right. So what we got to do is,
I remember.
right. So what we've got to do is we've got to go, okay, a panic attack is just a psychological event. We turn it over. I accept the fear. I accept the fear. I don't mind having a panic attack. It's unpleasant. It won't hurt me, but I don't mind having one, and it's absolutely fine. As soon as you take the fear of panic out, you don't get enough fear to have a panic. So as soon as you accept a panic attack, if you genuinely say, I don't mind, I'll have a panic attack, bring it on. And you'll have probably watched one of my videos and say, okay, if I said to you, you have to have 10 panic attacks and then you'll never have another panic attack again. Would you like to have all the panic attacks like today and then be finished and be done and tomorrow you'll be free? Yeah, okay, Dave, yeah, okay. All right, well, crack on, have a panic attack. As soon as you want to have a panic attack, you can't have one because there's no fear.
Yeah, fear breeds more fear. It
exactly.
Just eats. It's, oh.
Yeah. But that's harsh, you know. So I don't know if you remember this one, and I'm not sure that this is completely accurate, but I will have started you off with a homework.
Lots of homework. Yeah.
I will have started you off with one in particular, though, because anxiety, as a general principle, is an overestimation of threat. Your brain is overestimating threat for whatever reason, right? It doesn't matter what your history is, doesn't matter what's happening. If you feel anxious, your brain is overestimating threat. Now, I would say to you, or I would have said to you, I'd likely have done this. I would have said to you, okay, if you look around in your kind of external reality, are you under threat?
No.
Right. So in external reality, you're safe. I say, but do you feel safe?
No.
And you, no, right. Look, we have a disparity between what's actually true and how you feel. And I will have started you off with this brain recalibration, which I'll share because it always works. And well, it always works, which is a good thing in therapy, right? Something that always works. It always works because it's true, right? You are safer than you feel.
Oh, I remember that word. I remember that so well.
I am safer than I feel I am.
Yeah.
Right. If your emotions are not calibrated to reality, then you're always going to have an emotional response that's not matched to what's going on.
Mm.
So we practice. This makes people laugh, and it makes me laugh, you know. Most of the therapy I do with people is practicing believing what's true.
Yeah.
Ooh, mind-blowing. Practice believing what's true. Okay, I am safer than I feel I am. We practiced that, didn't we? We said it thousands of times, and we recalibrated your brain. So all of a sudden, you would say, yeah, I feel safe. I feel safe. I am safe, and I feel safe. And that reduces the fear just by itself, because your brain's going, okay, so like, we're not under threat? No, we're not. I'm safe. Okay. My feelings do not reflect reality. Okay. Your brain catches on and it changes your experience, and just, you know, you just don't feel so frightened. It's a sort of simple thing, but it always works.
It's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly powerful. The other thing I just wrote down that you taught me was about looking for the possibility and opportunity in everything. The difference between making a helpful decision and an unhelpful decision, and the difference between the two. And linked into that was always, what you used to say was, today is always preparation for tomorrow, Wendy.
Yeah, you're practicing.
Yeah. You still say it to me every now and again. You may not be here, but David says, yes, okay, prepare today for tomorrow. I'm having a shit day, just do something that's going to help. So the possibility and opportunity, which I'd never thought about before, and helpful and unhelpful decisions.
Did I tell you the Kung Fu Panda story?
I don't think so. You might have done. Let's see if I remember.
Well, shall I tell you the secret of life?
Yeah, why not?
This will get your viewers up. You'll get your ratings up, right? The secret of life. Okay. So there are a couple of secrets of life, but this one in particular. How do you make your life turn out how you want it to turn out? That would be a secret of life, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? How do you make your life turn out how you want it to turn out?
By being aware of how you want to turn out, consciously aware of how you want it to turn out.
Okay, that brings us to the Kung Fu Panda movie, right? So the first Kung Fu Panda story, it's an animated cartoon. Anyway, so this panda, he's been designated the Dragon Warrior, and he's having a crisis of confidence, right? So he goes to the top of this mountain and he meets the wise tortoise, Master Oogway. And he says, Master Oogway, I'm not the Dragon Warrior. And Oogway says, the past is history, the future a mystery. Today is a gift. That is why it's called the present. So back to the secret of life, right? How do you make your life turn out how you want it to turn out? Well, The past is history. The future a mystery. Today is the only day you have to be alive. And in fact, this moment is the only moment you have to be alive. So right now, being present, this is your life. So if you want your life to turn out a particular way, you do something in this moment, in this hour, in this day, that looks a bit like you want your life to be. Because the future is a mystery, right? So we practice today what we want our life to look like, and tomorrow it will just roll out without us really having, obviously tomorrow is today and we practice a bit, right? So if I wanted to be fluent in Spanish, right, I might learn a word of Spanish. I might learn another word tomorrow. And then the next thing you know, I can speak Spanish if I was interested enough. But when we're running neuro programs and processes, we're making decisions today unconsciously a lot of times, in fairness, that are unhelpful today and they're unhelpful tomorrow. And then we're surprised that things don't turn out how we want them to turn out. In a way, you go, I don't say this, because I don't say this, but I'd like to say, and you're surprised that this has happened? Because you've been doing this for 35 years and you're surprised? Well, of course, they're surprised because they don't see that they're doing it. So what we do is we make the programs that you're running explicit, and now you have some choice over whether you run them or not. You have a choice whether to be agreeable or not. Yeah.
If I can catch myself doing it, although now I'm aware, now I'm aware of it, it's going to take me a while to, I think, to undo it. I'll have to play with it. But I think I was in my head, the question was, is there a tipping point when people realize that they actually have a choice rather than doing things on automatic pilot and in survival? Because for me, it was really about survival. Is there a tipping point where people get to and they're just like, oh my God? Because that's definitely what happened for me. I was like, what?
I think there's a tipping point, but everybody's different, and some people have more and some people have less awareness of themselves doing stuff. So I would typically help people to understand the programs that they're running. Now, if someone gets this idea that you're safer than you feel you are, your brain is making you feel unsafe, but you're not unsafe. If someone can get that, that makes perfect sense. All of a sudden, we've opened a window onto the brain that was previously shut.
Right.
So I would say, is what you're doing. So we say, like, this is what you're doing. And if you use the example of being agreeable, right?
Yeah.
Right. You're excessively agreeable, people pleasing. You're putting yourself last, and it's not working out for you. Now, if we lay that out on the table and I say it's not working out for you, do you want to keep doing that, or do you want to do something different? And you go, well, I know what it's like doing it, so I'll opt to do something different. Okay, well, what can we do that's different? Okay, so we'd put you at the center of your universe. We'd make you feel strong about you. And then other people are well, this is my motto, right? You're a star in your own movie. You're a star in your own movie, but you're an extra to everybody else.
Yep.
I
like that. I haven't heard you say that before. That's a good one.
Right. But if you make everybody else a star and you're an extra in your own movie, you're never going to get the big part.
It's really funny because that's what I've done all the time. Now I hear you say that, I'm like, and I know why that happened, but just hearing you say that, it's like, cha-ching, oh.
Yeah, and it's not complex, but now all of a sudden there are more options, aren't there? Now you might say, well, I don't know what to do. I know I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. Fine, okay. Well, then we figure out what to do.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. How does, sorry, were you going to say something, David?
No, you go ahead. It's your interview.
How?
Don't be agreeable. You'll be the most unagreeable.
It's really difficult, because I was speaking to someone yesterday and I just really love speaking to him and I agreed with everything, and I was just like, oh God, just, yeah. How does trauma, past trauma, because my trauma, the trauma I've experienced is very chaotic, there's a lot of it. How does that sort of show up? Does it reach a tipping, again, I don't know why I keep referring to tipping point, but I think what happened for me was I went into trauma denial, I call it, for such a long time. I denied, I knew it happened, but it wasn't, it was just happened. It was just, it was part of life. That was life. That's how I experienced life. Mm. So I feel that I've suddenly reached a point where I've woken up and I've been able to, sorry, I'm not articulating myself very well. I've suddenly got my head around how much trauma I've been through and been able to work through it. Is how can we stay in trauma? I think the question for me is, how can we stay in trauma denial for so long and just keep reliving those patterns and that behavior for so long?
I bring you back to alternatives, right? If you don't have an alternative, just living with traumatic experiences feels normal. Mm. And again, I'd say that a lot of, if maybe the majority of people who've had traumatic experiences, they just live with them. They adjust their life to accommodate that thing. I mean, you know, I've worked with people who've had all manner of traumatic experiences. I thought of everything really, you know, but let's just pick a simple one. Because it's simple and it's quite common. Road traffic accident. Now, this is what's called a type 1 trauma. So it's a single event, okay? Now, but suppose after that trauma, you couldn't drive. That would be a problem, right?
Yep.
No one will come to see me because they've had a road traffic accident. They'll just come to see me because I haven't been able to drive for 5 years. Which means I've had to give up my job. I can't take the kids to school. Blah, 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 blah. That's the problem. I want to get back to driving, please. So that's a simple example of how a trauma affects people. The thought of driving. Oh, I can't even sit in the car because it brings up the memory of the fear of the accident. So trauma is a disorder of memory. The memories we have often trapped strong emotions from the time that are not discharged. And so if you think about one of your experiences, oh, it brings up the emotion. Oh, don't even, you know, and you just don't, because what can you do with it? Unless you know how to do something with it, what can you do with it? So why even bring it up? Just block it off. And that's how trauma persists, right? Because we don't know what to do with it. We try not to think about it. We try to avoid talking about it. We try to avoid triggers, memories, anything at all. So what you've done though, Wendy, is you've gone, these are powerful forces distorting the course of my life. And so you're trying to work on them. You've processed them. You've taken the emotion out of them, to some of them anyway. You've taken the emotion out so that they no longer are distorting things. They're simply things that happened in your past. Unpleasant things, fair enough, but they don't have power over you. Traumatic memories that remain unprocessed, in a sense, have power over you. And there's a little technique I invented years ago. I used to be a consultant psychologist in the Berkshire Traumatic Stress Service, and I figured this out, and it's pretty reliable, right? I'd say to someone, can you just tell me, like, how long ago did the thing happen? And they'd say, 20 years.
Yeah.
I say, okay. Can you bring up a picture of it in your mind? Like, just bring up a memory, right? How long ago does it feel like it happened? Yesterday. I say, okay. So can you bring up a memory from your school days, a happy memory, the first time you're on a holiday? They go, yeah, okay. I say, okay. If you think about it as a picture in your mind, how far away is it? And they go, oh, God. I used to run courses in a skyscraper in London, and we'd have a view of the whole of London. I say, how far away is it? They go, oh, it's that building, that one over there with the red top. Right, okay. Okay, can you bring up the memory of the event, right? When you bring the picture up, when you look at the picture in your mind, how far away does it feel? Oh, it's in your face. So there's two, I developed these two really quick diagnostic tools, right? How long ago does it feel like it happened? How far away is it?
Mm.
And these reveal that trauma stays in a place in the brain that it shouldn't be. So traumatic memories are not transferred to long-term store.
Mm.
So they remain in an active state. Therefore, they always feel like they're yesterday, last week, a month ago, a year ago. Well, how long ago was it? It was 45 years ago. How long does it feel? About, yeah. So they always feel closer than they are. And therefore, they feel more potent. And therefore, you feel like you've got to avoid them more because it's like, oh, it just happened yesterday, right? So it's kind of, in a nutshell, that's what trauma memories are. They have a lot of emotion. They're inappropriately stored in the brain. Therefore, they always feel more present than they should do, and they always feel closer than they should do. But that also tells us what we need to do to resolve them.
Mm.
Discharge the emotion, make them feel like they happened a long time ago, and make them so that they're not close. And then you have freedom from them. Therefore, you don't have to avoid them, and therefore you don't have to design your life around not activating them.
Yeah, it's incredible if it's not the energy. I think of it as an energetic discharge, like a build up of energy. So I would constantly get emotionally triggered. So something would set me off and I would become a little bit out of control.
Mm.
How does it, so we've spoken a little bit about the head. How does it affect the body? Because I'm just thinking of a time where my head told my body it was doing something, and my body said, "Yeah, I'm not having it," and made me have a panic attack where I ended up in the bathtub like this.
Well, the emotion behind traumatic memories is going to be a negative emotion. It's typically fear and or shame. Really, I'd say fear and shame. Mm. Now, fear is an emotion, but your body, I'll show you a picture that says, look, you have thoughts, you have emotions, you have sensations, and you have behaviors, right? So we can think, we can do, we can feel, and we can feel emotion and feel physiological, right? So if you load a trauma memory into your brain, you're going to behave as if the trauma memory was happening. You're going to feel emotionally as if the trauma memory is happening. And you're going to feel physiologically as if the trauma memory is happening. And you're going to do stuff that you would have done then. So it kind of like takes over. I mean, not necessarily 100%, but it takes over an element of your experience, and it recapitulates it. It reperforms it. So trauma has a habit of performing itself over and over and over again. And that's what makes it difficult. So even thinking about my simple example, even thinking about going in a car, I couldn't possibly do that. Oh yeah. So we have the whole experience.
Yeah.
And, you're just thinking about going in a car. And when you have more complex experiences over a longer period of time, you develop ways to keep yourself safe, as we've spoken about, like, for instance, being agreeable, for instance. You develop ways of self-defense that make sense then, but they don't make sense now. But if you do the behavior
Yeah.
that you did at the time of the trauma, then you're going to get the physiology, you're going to get the emotions, and you're going to get the thoughts, because you're triggering that loop of thought, emotion, behavior, sensation. You know, so we're easily triggered, and then that makes us feel like the most common thing people say to me when they experience when they experience like memories of trauma, is that they think they're going mad.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
I really thought I was going mad. I can't even describe it now, how it felt. God, it was horrible. Horrible. Never felt anything like it. But my biggest fear was going mad. Whatever that means. I'm not even sure I know what it means, but it just felt.
Yeah, you can't go mad. I know it's a feeling people have, though, right?
Yeah.
You can't go mad.
David, what are you up to these days?
Well, my approach is kind of dead simple, really. I would say to people, okay, if you have a problem, that's an outcome. Let's figure out what the process is that's creating the outcome. Stop the process, stop the outcome. So I develop what's called active self-help programs. So my current program is called Anxiety Wizard, which basically takes you through a whole treatment strategy, cognitive behavior therapy treatment strategy for worry, anxiety, panic, but also sleep. It gives, you know, strategies for sleep, because right now, as a general principle, mental health problems are huge, you know, and they're getting worse. And I have an image that I'll share with you. Can you remember can you have an image of what Wembley Stadium looks like? It's a big football stadium. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It holds 90,000 people.
Yeah.
If it's full of 90,000 people, 15,000 of those will be on antidepressants.
Whoa.
Now, an antidepressant does not solve the problem of anxiety, depression, panic, stress, OCD. It just reduces the intensity of the experience. It doesn't resolve it at all. And I go, oh man, you know. So I try to build active self-help programs that you can access wherever you are in the world on the internet. You work through the program, very inexpensive, but everything I know poured into it, because, well, you know, you feel an awful lot better than you did, don't you?
Oh God, 8 weeks. I was amazed. I'd been living with it for like 5-6 months of fear, of just intense fear, incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And those tools, you know, I put them in such a way that you can go, I mean, like this one, you know, I'm saved, I feel I am. You can just use that tool and it will work. I don't even care if you believe it, because it's true. As long as you acknowledge it's true, I don't care when you believe it.
I think that's a really important point. You've got me to do so many things that I didn't believe, but because you told me to do them, I just did them, even though I didn't believe them. I just did them, and now I believe them because they made such a difference. But I didn't believe them at the time, and I think people can give up too easily on themselves. They self-abandon too quickly because it's not quick enough.
The thing that I'm sort of sad, I think it's sad to accept like so many limitations that you don't have to have, right? You know, to accept anxiety or depression or panic or stress or even OCD, to accept these things. Yeah, well, I'm just a bit anxious. Yeah, okay. You don't have to be anxious. You know, anxiety is completely inappropriate, really. I mean, obviously, you know, you should be frightened of things. But anxiety is imagining catastrophe that never happens. And that just what's
the point?
What's the point? Yeah. The fact is, everybody who ever had anxiety and they actually had to do something that they're anxious about, oh, it was easier than I thought it would be. Because when you actually get to do it, you're in the real world and you've got tools and resources, you've got experience, you've got yourself and you've got other people, right? Well, but when I imagined it, I thought it'd be horrible, but actually it wasn't that bad. So I developed these programs. So if anyone's interested in my stuff, drpurvis.online is where I have my stuff. And of course, I do private practice over Zoom these days. Berkshire Psychology Service or Dr. Purvis. I mean, I'm pretty findable, really.
Well, highly recommended. Very highly recommended. Do you know, I've done a lot of stuff. That's not very. I've done a lot of therapy over the years, but I have to say this was the one that made the biggest impact, I think, because you was just so precise. You just always knew what to do, which is, but more importantly, you gave me the tools so I knew what to do, rather than that old dynamic of you have therapy, then you go next week, then you go the week after, and you don't feel like you're getting anywhere, and you're just talking, and it just feels pointless.
Look, can I share my kind of general principle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you captured it, but let me just, if you take an antidepressant, you learn nothing. And therefore, you have to remain on an antidepressant 20 years, your whole life, but you're no wiser. So you're outsourcing your well-being. And if you do like regular therapy, as you say, where you talk, but if you don't get tools, if you don't get resources that you can practice yourself, you're not any wiser either. You're relying on the therapist.
Good point. The power dynamic to me is wrong.
Yeah,
not wrong, but not helpful.
But when you learn the tools yourself, you understand the principle, you learn the tools yourself, you apply the tools, you always have the tools. You've learned what you need to manage your mental health. And that's empowering. And that's kind of like my mission, right? To teach people what to do so they don't have to be anxious or depressed. So, thank you for the opportunity to sort of share the mission statement in a way.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I'm very glad that I can. And I hope people find this useful and that they reach out to you and get the help they need. I think it's just, don't keep it to yourself. You don't need to keep it to yourself. I think part of the recovery journey is actually sharing your story and what's happened to you with somebody else. Whether that's one-to-one or in a group, because I know you do with the group. You've got the Facebook group, haven't you, as well?
Yeah. Every psychological problem has a solution. Now, it might not be obvious and it might take a bit of working towards, but as long as you engage with the process, you always get somewhere. And I've known people, who, in fairness, have, schizophrenia and bipolar and personality disorders, but they're engaged with the process. They always get somewhere. So even the things that you think of as intractable, you can still improve them if you engage with the process and put some effort into it. It's
taking the action. It's taking the action. It's doing the homework and sticking to it. But I just want to thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. I've really appreciated it. I could keep talking to you, but I'm conscious of your time, and it's a Saturday. I could just keep talking to you because I always learn so much.
Well, perhaps we'll have another conversation another time.
Yes, that would be awesome. I would love that. Okay, I'll pop your details below so people can get access to them. And if anyone's got any questions, do reach out to David or just pop them below in the chat box. That's absolutely fine. I can always pass them on. So once again, thank you for your time, David.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Wendy.
I can't remember which one. So I just stopped.